Welcome everyone to the weekly community meditation and talk and discussion. My name is Aishah Shahidah Simmons. Really happy to be a part of the Community Insight Sangha. And we'll begin with a silent meditation. And it's been a really heavy week that started with the 19th shooting at a school or university in 2023, in which at least one person was wounded, and the deadliest since the attack that happened in Uvalde, Texas, last year. So since Uvalde, there have been 42 K-12 school shootings. It's really intense time. And yesterday, March 31st, was Trans Day of Visibility, and was the last day of Women's History Month. Today, April 1st, is the first day of Sexual Assault Awareness Month. It's also Dalit History Month and National Poetry Month. There's so much happening, continuous reminders in our news of horrors committed and against humans, against animals, our environment, our climate, our planet. And we're really reminded that there aren't consistent safe spaces, and maybe there never were. So what a wonderful opportunity for us to gather today on the week, just to collect ourselves, and invite you to lower your eyes, lower your gaze, or close your eyes if you feel comfortable. Just connecting with our inner universes in community, in this brave space that we co-create every week. And often our bodies arrive before our minds, so just allowing space for everything to kind of get connected. And for the time that we're here, or the time that you're here, if you have to maybe leave early, just remembering that in these moments that there isn't anywhere to go, that we're just here, and that we're practicing practice. We aren't practicing for results. So connecting with your breath. The in breath. Zen master and ancestral spirit Thich Nhat Hanh says, breathing in, I feel space. Breathing out, I am free. So taking a deep breath in and bringing attention to the crown of your head, or the front of your body. Feeling the spaciousness above your head, above the ceiling, above the roof, connecting with the vastness of the universe. while staying in tune with our breath. Coming back down into awareness of our body, awareness of the sensations, visualizing a circle, a field of protection around you. Supporting you, cheering you on. Awareness of our connection to the earth through our seat, either our sit bones on the floor or our sit bones on the chair, which is touching the floor. Our feet are touching the floor, or our legs, or if we're lying down, our body touching the bed or the floor, which is connected to the foundation of the building where we are, which is connected to the earth. So, rooting ourselves, our connection to the earth. Breathing in, breathing out. staying rooted in the earth, connected to the breath coming in and going out, or another chosen anchor of body sensations or sound. An invitation to invite awareness in the direction of compassion, openness, beginner's mind, beginning again and again, letting go of judgment, letting go of fixing, letting go of comparing. If your mind has wandered, gently bring it back. Lovingly bring it back. Compassionately bring it back to this moment. Breathing in, I see myself as space. Breathing out, I am free. We are held by the universe. We are held by our planet Earth, the only true home aside from our bodies. And in this Sangha, this Elm Community Insight Sangha, we are held by each other. May we awaken. May we discover our awakening on the path. And may we cultivate our awakening in community. Thank you for your sitting practice, and now we will transition into either if you want to journal or do walking meditation or just take a pause, a bathroom break, or continue sitting. Feel free, and we will come back. I will come back in 10 minutes. So it's 11:09. So at 19 after the hour, I will come back. So the title of my talk today is Cultivating Balance in the Eight Worldly Winds. And I will open with some words of wisdom from senior teachers. Tibetan Buddhist nun Pema Chodron wrote, quote, "There isn't going to be some precious future time when all the loose ends will be tied up. One of the things that keeps us unhappy is this continual searching for pleasure or security, searching for a little more comfortable situation, either at the domestic level or at the spiritual level or at the level of mental peace," close quotes. In his book, No Mud, No Lotus, Zen master and ancestral spirit Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, "Both suffering and happiness are of an organic nature, which means they are both transitory. They are always changing. The flower, when it wilts, becomes the compost. The compost can help grow a flower again. Happiness is also organic and impermanent by nature. It can become suffering, and suffering can become happiness again. And then the Anicca chant, which I will speak in English and not in Pali, the original language of the Buddha. All things are impermanent. They arise and they pass away. To be one with this truth brings great happiness. In December 2022, during one of Elm Community's weekday sits, Sangha leader, co-leader Tracy Hodes offered this vision of the recitation of the five remembrances, which are practiced or encouraged to be practiced every day, at least in Theravada Buddhism. And so this is a contemporary version of them. And it's one, I am of the nature to grow old. How can I grow old with grace? Two, I am of the nature to get sick. How can I show tenderness to myself during sickness? And three, I am of the nature to die. How can I be conscious of this truth? Four, everything I care about and everyone I love is of the nature to change. I will be separated from them. How can I love without attachment? And five, I am the owner of my actions. They are the ground upon which I stand. They are my continuation. How can I act with skillfulness, in body, heart, and mind? So I open with these quotes from Pema Chodron, Thich Nhat Hanh, the Anicca chant, the five remembrances, to open a pathway for my talk. Developing an experiential understanding of these realities, specifically anicca or impermanence, is helpful as we navigate our way with the eight worldly dharmas, or the eight worldly winds as they are commonly known, and are discussed in the Loka Vipatti Sutta. Um, so gain and loss, status and disgrace, praise and blame, and pleasure and pain are four opposing states that are unavoidable and, like intense winds, can wreak all kinds of havoc in our lives without awareness of impermanence, without the ability to practice equanimity, to cultivate balance. So I want to read a little from the sutta, which is the Pali word for sutra, the sacred writings or texts of the Buddha. Gain, loss, status, disgrace, praise, censure, or blame, pleasure, pain. These conditions among human beings are in constant, impermanent, subject to change. And I'm going to use gender neutral language. They welcome, so in the original text it's he, so I'm saying they to encompass everyone of all genders. They welcome the arisen gain and rebel against the arisen loss. They welcome the arisen status and rebel against the arisen disgrace. They welcome the arisen praise and rebel against the arisen censure or the arisen blame. They welcome the arisen pleasure and rebel against the arisen pain, and they are thus engaged in welcoming and rebelling. They are not released from birth, aging, or death, from sorrows, lamentations, pains, distresses, or despair. They are not released, I tell you, from suffering and stress. It's not rare that we have gain without also experiencing loss, status without also experiencing disgrace, praise without also experiencing blame, and pleasure without also experiencing pain. We fall in love and our beloved cheats or breaks up with us or dies before we die. We buy the house of our dreams and we lose our job and can't pay the mortgage, or the roots of a tree are pushing up the walkway, or some other unexpected expensive repair, or undesirable neighbors move in. We are praised for delicious food, and then someone gets sick the next day. We are selected as employee of the month, and several months later receive a poor work performance evaluation, or maybe laid off because of unavoidable budget cuts. Regardless of how small or large, we all experience some form of the eight worldly winds on a regular basis on both micro and macro levels. On March 11th, I talked about how Black lesbian feminist, mother warrior poet, and ancestral spirit Audre Lorde's poetry in prose serves as a gateway to Dharma. And her poem, A Litany for Survival, provides a vivid window to the eight worldly winds, the eight worldly dharmas. And I'll read the concluding stanza. And when the sun rises, we are afraid it might not remain. When the sun sets, we are afraid it might not rise in the morning. When our stomachs are full, we are afraid of indigestion. When our stomachs are empty, we are afraid we may never eat again. When we are loved, we are afraid love will vanish. When we are alone, we are afraid love will never return. When we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard nor welcomed. But when we are silent, we are still afraid. So it is better to speak, remembering we were never meant to survive. And so the Lokavapati Sutta, A Litany for Survival, Audrey's poem, really reminds us that we hope for pleasure and we have fear of pain. We hope for fame, and fame isn't necessarily the Hollywood celebrity. There are all kinds of ways in which we can get fame, and we have fear of disgrace. We hope for praise, and we have fear of blame. We hope for gain, and we have fear of loss. And recognizing this is not an admonishment or even judgment. There are many reasons why this is the case. The challenge is when we crave or cling to one state and are afraid or have aversion to its opposite state, we awaken but not eradicate the three poisons that are sleeping volcanoes known as greed, hatred, and delusion. Craving is a form of greed, and aversion is a form of hatred. And delusion about what is and what isn't the reality lurks amid the two. And none of this releases us from suffering nor stress. If or when we understand that each of these four pairs are unreliable because they're ephemeral and subject to continuous change, we can learn how not to allow the winds to blow us over. And as a Black feminist lesbian survivor of childhood sexual abuse and young adult rape, I am continuously reminded that the impact of the various forms of oppressions make the realities of the eight worldly dharmas or the eight worldly winds more acute in some lives in comparison to others. So there is always space and room for spiritual bypass, and we have to be mindful. I believe we have to continuously not allow spiritual supremacy to bypass these stark realities for so many in our society and globally. Again, these are ripe opportunities for greed, hatred, and delusion. And with that shared, each one of us faces some form of the eight worldly winds in our lives, and they inform and impact our feelings. So it's not the winds in of themselves, it is our reactions to them. They give rise to a wide range of feelings that can take us on either end of the pendulum of extreme highs and devastating lows. The work through our Dharma or mindfulness practice is to strive to cultivate a level of equanimity, a level of equipoise or balance, on either end of the spectrum, because we're going to be on either end at some point. And can we find that balance when we have gain, knowing that loss is right around the corner? And can we have that balance when we experience loss, knowing that gain is around the corner? So when we are caught in the feelings associated with craving and aversion, they may make it difficult to see the wisdom and clarity. It is important to recognize that in of themselves, feelings are not the problem. Their energies, however, become hindrances or blockages because our conditioned habit is to be identified with them or ignore and resist, suppress, deny, judge, or try to control them. And yet, when met with mindfulness and care, these same energies become an immediate gateway to increased aliveness and spiritual awakening. So in 2020, when all of our lives were upended by the COVID pandemic, I expedited something that was in the planning stages. I moved from my hometown of 51 years to another city to live with my beloved partner. It was without question one of the best decisions I made for a myriad of reasons that I don't have time to go into with this talk. But fast forward to summer of 2022, my partner received an incredible job that required residence in a different city, the same city I left in 2020 and departed 2 years prior to live with her. So, in what felt like the twinkling of an eye, the rug was pulled from under my feet. I was beside myself and explicitly clear I didn't want to return to the city I just left. I knew my adamant position meant resuming the long distance relationship, this time in reverse, and I was absolutely devastated about all of it. The seismic shift in our lives required me to evaluate everything because I was so invested in the life that I'd lived for the past 2 years at that time. I didn't have or want to have any awareness, much less acknowledgement of impermanence. And all of this occurred in between my attending not one, but two residential retreats, the July Insight Retreat at Spirit Rock Meditation Center and half of the September retreat at the Forest Refuge. I highlight this reality because retreats alone do not necessarily lessen the weight of misery. It is the application of the practice in our moment to moment lives that does. So life in the fall of 2022 felt unbearable because the vision I had of my partner and I living in quote unquote together happily ever after in our home dissipated, vanished. I couldn't find anything positive anywhere. I was angry and unable and unwilling to face the anger. 1 month after our new living arrangement, I had a bad fall outside of our home and tore a ligament in my right ankle and was partially immobilized. My partner immediately came down to take care of me over the first weekend, but she was unable to stay to take care of me in our home because she had a new job in a new city. And I refused to go back with her to the apartment because I was angry and in protest. Now, I was fortunate that my father, who only knew I couldn't walk and needed support because my partner couldn't stay, offered to come down and take care of me. His extended visit turned out to be a healing gift and surprise. And I can't even go into that again because of time limits. But after he left, I caught the wretched non-COVID respiratory infection that wiped me out for 3 weeks. It was around the November holiday. So I was between two cities because I couldn't take care of myself. So I would go up where, and my partner would came down. We were just, and because of the holiday, we're able to use vacation time, but it was brutal. And I felt like, and there were other extenuating realities that were exasperating all that I was going through. And those realities were connected to my residual trauma resurfacing from my being a survivor. So I was in my hell realm. I was in the mud, resisting soaking up any of its nutrients. I was looking for the lotus, but in the mud. and not understanding that it is only through the mud that the lotus will emerge. I spent a lot of time sobbing, being miserable, sad, angry about the state of affairs in my life. I couldn't think, much less try to seek a pathway both in and through the storm of probably all of the winds happening at once because I was deep in my aversion. Have you ever tried to push against the wind? It's impossible. In response to my rage rant about everything being unfair, Dara Williams, former guiding teacher of Insight Meditation Society and one of my Dharma teachers, said to me, "Given the external conditions, Aisha, what are you going to do about it?" She didn't deny the harshness of my reality. She just asked what was I going to do about it. And I got to tell you, I didn't want to hear that question. I wanted her to host a pity party for and with me. I actually resented her for giving me agency. And yet, that question was like a bright beam that invited me to examine what was happening. Yes, things were drastically different from how I envisioned. And from my vantage point, it was not fair. And yet, that was my reality at the time. I kept pushing against it because I had so much aversion. I was caught in the windstorm of perhaps all of the winds, and I couldn't find my way because I was resisting continuously. Viktor Frankl, neurologist, psychiatrist, and Holocaust survivor, said, and I quote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom." Dara's question, given the external conditions, what are you going to do about it, was an acknowledgement that there was a windstorm. And it was an invitation to create a plan in the midst of it. It is also a continuous invitation when you're recognizing um, these storms to either circumvent them or learn how to be malleable because it's all impermanent. And so this isn't about shaming, judging, or condemning me or any of us for getting swept up in the winds of craving and aversion. It is recognizing that when we are swept up, we are suffering, and is asking if we can turn toward our feelings that arise when we are caught in the winds with compassion and care. Can we learn how to become close friends with impermanence? All things are impermanent, they arise and they pass away. To become one with this truth brings great happiness. Whether we like it or not, impermanence is with us always. So, can we learn how to be friends? Can we continuously acknowledge impermanence without being in a space of fear? And how can we do that? Is through cultivating equanimity, upekkha, cultivating balance to help us navigate these winds that impermanence brings us, and recognizing that they may be opportunities of gifts to seeing what is going on. Can we pause and then discern the reality that is, not what we want it to be, and to the best of our abilities, let go of, using the Buddha's words, welcoming and rebelling? And when I say, can we let go? I mean, I don't mean if there's a horrible situation that you're in, just kind of, oh, I don't care, impermanence is going to happen and this will change. It is letting go of our attachment of what we want it to be so that we can hopefully see clearly to discern about how we can either find peace, if possible, or balance, or change the situation, change maybe even our perspective. My partner is still in the different city. We're still in a long distance relationship. We're figuring out what that all means in long term, short term. But what has changed is I'm not enraged anymore. I am not um, feeling powerless. I am not resentful of being home here. I am willing and visit the city where I left and where she lives, where my family is, a big part of my family, not all of my family. I just it was just really kind of turning um the perspective, like not seeing it as half empty, but seeing it as half full, and seeing that this is what it is. And also, let me just say, recognizing that this was an incredible opportunity for her, that she was not in a really good place with the former job. So, kind of stepping outside of my reality, right? Of all of my wants, needs, desires, wishes, to also like looking and saying, well, wait a minute, how is this something that is beneficial to her, and by extension, because I care about her, beneficial to me? Um, and so these are opportunities that when we are caught up in these winds, and I use the example of all that was happening at once, and also being deep in retreat, because I think that sometimes we can use retreats as kind of like, oh, I'm doing these retreats, I'm okay, and not even aware that, I mean, the retreats are wonderful, and for those of us who can do it, I think that we should do them. Create a wonderful and powerful opportunity to kind of step away from everything and really go in. But then they're an invitation for us to apply all that we have cultivated and experienced in those extended periods of deep meditative silence to our daily lives. What good is the practice if we're not applying it to our daily lives? If we're not able to be like, Anisha, here you are. I mean, you're always here, but I'm really seeing you now because something that I don't want is happening. So it is really important that we understand that welcoming and rebelling these energies is what is keeping us in a state of suffering. It is actually not the energies, it is the welcoming and resisting. And that if it is possible to not allow ourselves to be just blown away like a tumbleweed, like, a leaf in a wind, to try to allow to cultivate the equanimity that enables us to stand rooted in the earth, to stand rooted in the tree, recognizing that even the tree is going to fall, but to find stability amidst there not being stability, to find ground amid the groundlessness, to not get attached, to not judge and be frustrated, to have compassion when we recognize that, oh, that wind just knocked me over, and to recognize that each moment we begin again, that is the beauty of the practice, is that we can begin again, and that all we have is the moment. And so in closing, I just want to invite all of us to remember that we are human, we are not perfect, we are filled with contradictions and complexities, that the vicissitudes of life are constantly coming at us. And in this contemporary moment where we are aware of so much harm, so much violence, that it is really hard not to feel despair. And so, if we can allow and invite compassion, if we can invite loving kindness and balance and equanimity to be our companions while we learn how to be friends with impermanence, we might just be able to find and balance with the eight worldly winds that appear in very micro and macro levels. So thank you. And so with about 10 minutes left, I want to open up um, oh, thank you, Annette. Open up for an opportunity to have a conversation. Sometimes we um, go into breakout rooms, and which I really benefit. And I also just want to create space today to have a group conversation um, around the eight worldly winds, around impermanence, and invite people to, if they not only I don't even want to say questions, because I don't have the answers. I mean, I have the answers through my experiences, but we're all yogis here, we're all experiencing life, but just really reflections and contemplations. um, so yes, I want to invite anyone, either at the library, um, if you want to speak, or if you're on Zoom, to raise your digital hand, and I will pause the recording so that everyone can feel free to speak freely. So recognizing that we don't just practice for ourselves, but we for the benefit of ourselves, excuse me, we don't just practice for the benefit of ourselves, but we practice for the benefit of all beings everywhere and without exception. May any benefits that we've received from our practice today, may we share them with all beings, human and non-human, near and far, big and small, all beings, and remembering that we are one amongst all beings. May all beings be free from enmity and danger. May all beings be free from pain and suffering. May all beings cultivate balance amid the storms. And may all beings know joy and love and compassion and sympathetic joy and liberating wisdom in this life, just as it is. Thank you all for your practice.
Thank you. Bye.